In the grand theater of global economies, two growing economies stand tall, China and India. The story of China's economic ascent is the one that has been told far and wide. The tale of a sleeping dragon waking up to clinch the title of the world's second largest economy. With an astounding GDP growth rate of around 10% from 1990 to 2004, China set a record that few could rival. But now, China seems to be stumbling.
China could be facing an extended economic downturn.
On the other hand, India, the world's largest democracy, is now stepping up into the limelight. With a GDP which is already over $3 trillion and projections of a 7.6% growth in 2023. Is India pacing to be the next China on the economic frontier? To understand that, first let's discuss what did China actually do to achieve its economic success. Chapter 1. China's meteoric rise. Even during the late 1970s, China was very poor. Almost 90% of its population lived in absolute poverty, and its share of world economy was less than 1.5%. Its economy was very rural, agriculture-based, and closed.
There are no privately owned cars. And there are no washing machines or freezers or television sets in any of these homes. There are no mortgages or credit cards.
But in the late 20th century, China embarked on an economic journey that redefined the world economic order. Here is a glimpse into the strategic triad that propelled China's economic miracle. First were the economic reforms. The year 1978 marked a significant deflection point in China's economic narrative. With the introduction of market-oriented reforms, China hurled open the door to unprecedented economic growth. The reforms acted as a potent catalyst, propelling its economy from just about $150 billion then to almost $13.6 trillion by 2018. A big testament to the power of economic liberalization. And these reforms just didn't pump the economic muscle of China. They brought the global investment community, enticed by the allure of China's huge market, brought loads of investment into China, thereby permanently tying up China with the rest of the world. And that led to a job creation spree like never before. The second is China's entry into the World Trade Organization. It happened during the dawn of the new millennium when China joined WTO in 2001. It was nothing short of a game changer. Tariffs took nosedive, trade barriers were removed and crumbling like house of cards. The dragon economy kept climbing up to the stratosphere.
Decision on the accession of the People's Republic of China.
Next is the private sector expansion. This was probably the biggest factor to China's economy growing to what it became. The Chinese government shifted to a majorly capitalist system and allowed the private businesses to flourish, as long as they don't threaten the political power of the Chinese Communist Party. So before the reform, China had a system where all prices were set by the administration with no regard to demand or supply. And then it shifted from there to a system where markets determine all prices based on demand and supply. It started with goods and services, and eventually all other market forces like salaries, etc. were also determined by the market. In this increasingly market-driven environment in China, private firms became the major source of output, production, and job growth. A major source of China's growth in the post-reform era has been the investment done by private firms. And they have been able to generate returns on these investments almost at the rate of 3 times than those generated by state-run firms. Since opening up to foreign trades and investments and implementing market reforms in 1979, China has been among the fastest growing economies in the world, growing at a rate of almost 9.5 to 10% up to 2018, a pace described by World Bank as the most sustained growth by a major economy ever in history. Such growth has enabled China, on an average, to double its GDP every 8 years and has helped raise almost 800 million people out of extreme poverty. But then, of late, there have been policy mishaps that have caused China's growth story to stop and start going into decline. Chapter 2. The Crumbling Dragon. China's economic narrative is at a crossroad. The dragon that once roared with economic vigor is now grappling with challenges that threaten to taper its economic growth trajectory. So let's now look at the triad of concerns that loom over the dragon territory now. First is the financial sector distress. The Chinese economy is showing a lot of strains, led by the chaoses in real estate and financial sectors. Despite its shrinking population, the Chinese developers kept on taking easy loans, state-provided loans, and went on a building spree. So they kept taking on debt and built more homes every year than US and Europe combined. Today, China has more than 23 million unsold apartments, enough to house the entire UK population, but no buyers. The youth unemployment rate has reached 21%, and China's famed manufacturing is struggling due to falling exports. And the primary reason for falling exports? Geopolitical tensions. The US has declared China as its number one threat. It has put many sanctions to slow down China's economy. All of the West, which includes Europe and countries like South Korea and Japan, is expected to follow the US lead in containing China and putting more sanctions. Escalating tensions between Washington and Beijing, with US sanctions on semiconductors, have all forced US and Western companies to look for alternatives abroad to shield themselves from future geopolitical tensions as well as a slowing Chinese economy. And what is the top choice from these companies to move from China? It's India. Interestingly, India is also overtaking China in another area that is causing concern for China. As a result of China's one-child policy that was imposed between 1980 to 2015, the demographic clock is ticking for China. Its population aged 65 and above is increasing at a much faster pace and is projected to double from current 200 million to 400 million by 2049. This demographic shift brings a lot of challenges, both for the workforce as well as on social welfare scheme, and casts a long shadow on China's economic viability.
By 2050, India will have the largest population at around 1.66 billion. The US will be similar to the present at 375 million. China will decrease to 1.31 billion.
On the other hand, over the next 2 decades, India's working age population is expected to increase by 200 billion. It will become almost a billion working age adults, which will be largest in the world. India has a tremendous opportunity to leverage this human capital to produce goods and services that the world would want. It almost feels like India has everything going for it, precisely at the same moment when China is facing a lot of headwinds for its growth. Chapter 3. India, the rising phoenix. India, and Brazil for that matter, have long been a rising power, a country for the future. India's growth also accelerated after 1990, just like China. But China managed to leave India far behind. But now, in the wake of China's economic mishaps, India is rising like a phoenix, displaying a compelling narrative of growth and economic resurgence. India is now drawing global attention thanks to its trio of strategies that is fueling its economic growth. First is the GDP growth. The economic horizon in India is showing promising signs of growth. Projections are painting a promising picture of growth of 6.4% in 2023, which will further go up to 6.7% in 2024. This upward trajectory is fueled by a resurgence in private consumption and investments, spurred on by decisive government policies that are injecting new vitality into the Indian economy. But India needs to grow at a much faster rate of around 8 to 9% over the next 20 years to become a developed economy. Is it possible? Yes. But is it difficult? Yes again. It will take sustained focus from the government of India as well as private sectors and investments from both local and foreign investors. Second is the infrastructure lead. See, focus on infrastructure was a key policy decision for China when it started growing. It provided employment to millions of people, improving their economic condition and purchasing power, which were the essential ingredients of the overall industrial progress. Now India is looking to repeat this story by building sustainable and modern infrastructure that can match any developed country, particularly in the area of transportation, including roads, railways, airports. India is actually intending to attain that growth rate of 8% in near future. And this infrastructure push alone is expected to add more than 30 million jobs by 2030. India is also benefiting from smart trade positioning. The US has imposed big tariffs on China, and they're likely to be expanded. As these tariffs start kicking in, exports to US from China would become more and more expensive. Some manufacturers may decide to move production to other countries, including India. The top 3 sectors in India that would benefit immensely from this trade bar between US and China are pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and manufacturing. And one of the key attractions is the cheap labor cost in India as compared to China. But India is also likely to face strong competition from countries like Mexico and Vietnam, who are also trying to fill the void left by China. So India needs to work on creating the right environment for global investors and manufacturers. This would include land and labor regulation reforms, as well as skilling its large workforce. India, like the US, is a large democratic country that introduces challenges with policy making that are very different from that one party, authoritative state like China. So in India, being a diverse, large country with federal structure of government, reforms will likely take more time and effort than China. They would likely be done incrementally. However, India has a real opportunity to take advantage of the factors within and outside its control to lift billions of humans into prosperity. If the world has to place its bet between India and China, I would say go India. If you like this video, check out this other video which goes into depth about China's economic challenges. I would also appreciate if you can give a like to this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.